but what's the biggest mistake that, first time coaches do when they're trying to open up a gym? And what are the things that you could do to not make that happen in a way?
Yeah, they go way too big too soon, right? Like they think that they have to have that dream facility, that 10,000 square foot facility, and they think they need all this equipment in order for them to be a successful coach. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. Like the guys you mentioned, right? Joe DeFranco started his business in a closet. Literally, it was like a closet that could barely fit a squat rack in it, and that was it. And he grew it into a 2,500 square foot, then a 5,000, and then he got offered to move to Texas for that dream facility of it was like 10,000, 15,000 square foot, and he hated it. Yep. He moved back to New Jersey and opened up a smaller studio because he wanted that more intimate setting. And as a strength coach, it depends on what or as a person opening up a gym, it depends on what kind of business you're trying to operate, right? Are you trying to operate a gym where you want as much volume as possible to create an income, and you want independent contractors in there, and then that's how you're going to create your income so that you can be a little bit more hands-off? Then you want something that's maybe going to appeal to the masses a little bit more. You're going to have a little bit more cardio equipment. You're going to have a little bit things that are more, fancy, flashy, and more like, those hot words that are out there, like functional, and you got to have turf, and, so that may be the route. But if you want to be a very much a hands-on private coach, then you don't need much, right? Like you start to think that you need all this equipment, and then you undervalue your ability to be creative as a coach. You undervalue your ability of what's necessary as a coach, because you think you need these things to create performance, when you don't. We've been to Westside Barbell. There's not a big gym. They don't have a lot of fancy equipment, because you don't need fancy equipment. You just need to create that environment and that work ethic and that communication, most important thing. So the bigger your gym gets, the more lack of communication you have with the people around you. Yeah. The more in debt you become, the more it becomes a struggle to pay the bill. So I always tell people to start off as small as you can, and then kind of grow from there, right? You have your bare essentials that you need. I always tell people, buy good equipment first so you don't have to buy it again. So if you don't have the money for the equipment that you want, then don't buy it yet. Become creative, do some DIY stuff. And that's the biggest issue I see is a lot of coaches, they go too big, and then they also, and I understand it as a coach, you start chasing, like, you got to pay your rent. So then you start coaching people that you may not want to coach in the beginning. And then you start getting this resentment for going to the gym. Like, oh man, I got to go train this person. I don't really want to train this person. Yeah. And then that starts to show as well, because you're chasing the dollar instead of trying to actually put together a quality product. So I would say, make sure you have a professional source of income outside of the gym first, so that you don't have to chase after people that you don't want to train. So provide yourself with some type of buffer, whether it be 3 to 6 months worth of income, so that you can slowly build the facility that you want to build. And then, if you can keep that job, if you have a private facility and you set the hours, you can keep your job that you're working on and slowly acquire the athletes that you want. I think when people go all in, they get this huge loan, they quit their job, they get this huge facility, they're fucked, man. They're in a space where they're starting to drown and they don't know how to swim.
Yeah. So I started with 800 square feet, and I think the only thing that I started with was a Dolomer mat, like a wrestling mat that my coach gave to me. I had one tire that I think was like 250 pounds. I had one sledgehammer that was used. We got it out the dumpster. And that was pretty much it. Like, that was pretty much it. I started doing boot camps because, I watched you guys do your boot camps. So I was like, man, boot camps is where it's at. Like, I can make it happen. It's very easy for me, and I could still train because I was fighting full time at that time. And I was like, okay, cool. As I started doing it, I got 12 signups. And what ended up happening for me was that I developed this community, of people that wanted to be there and wanted to train and got mad at other people if they didn't show up. And that was one thing that really started to grow the business. And at that point, like, obviously, yeah, you run out of space and you have to go a little bit bigger, but only when you really, really need it, you know?
Exactly.
And again, like, I think people do too much or try to offer too much, you know, in that perspective. Like, I remember what we had at Samson's when I first went there. It was strength and conditioning and boot camp. That's it.
Yep. That
was really wasn't anything else. But nowadays, you got guys trying to do spin class and kickboxing and a boot camp over here, but also be a strength coach. There's too many things going on, and that people get sidetracked. It's like a paralysis by analysis type deal. And, you know, they don't know what to choose from. And that's the same thing when you're looking at it from, you know, getting your sales up. So, like, if I'm trying to give them a certain price range, don't give them 15 different price options. Just
right.
One or two so that they can choose and be like, all right, it's either 12 months or month to month. What are you going to do? You know, so
exactly.
And obviously you give them a deal if they do the 12-month long, but yeah. So that's good, man. So with that being said, what was like the hardest thing for you when you opened up the gym? What was the hardest thing that you had to do to overcome it? And what did you do to overcome it with that perspective?
Oh man, the hardest thing was overcoming being an introvert. I'm a natural introvert, which a lot of strength coaches are. And you have to learn how to get out there and create sales, and you have to create a marketing campaign. And for me, that was, you know, being comfortable doing a boot camp in front of 20 people and talking to them. And then also go after the boot camp, going out to 15 different boutiques and stores and talking to the managers and being like, hey, this is what I do, you know, without like being a bumbling, like nervous idiot. The first time I went to a place to talk to a hairdresser, I sat in my car literally for an hour talking about it in my head, like, oh man, this is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to do. All right, I'm going to go. No, I'm not going to go. Okay, I'm going to go. No, I'm not going to go. And it took me forever to get over that fear. And that was the biggest thing, man. Once I got over my fear of being an introvert and being shy and all that, the gym just blew up because I was able to convey the message of like, hey, I'm here to help you live a better life, to help you, you know, get in better shape. As long as you have that message of like, I'm here to help you, then it becomes really easy to talk to people, because that's what you're trying to do within our field and our profession. Is we're generally trying to help people live a better life. So why wouldn't I talk to you about it? Like, why wouldn't I tell you how I can do that? You know, how good of a coach I am and all this stuff, right? Like, but I was so shy, and it was something that was very, very much like scary for me. I remember in college, I had to do a bunch of, I signed up for a debate class. I signed up for a public speaking class just so I can put myself out of that comfort zone. Yeah. So I learned how to do it. Right. And that was, I mean, it was never an issue I always knew what I had to do. I always knew that I had to be uncomfortable. But once I put myself in that situation, it took me a little bit to like pull the trigger, but I knew I had to pay my bills. I knew what I had to do. So I forced myself into those situations of like, hey, this is on you, man. Like, you know, shut up or nut up. You got to do something.
Yeah, it's funny because Dean Thomas was on the show in an earlier episode, and he's an introvert too as well. Which is funny. It's funny. The two guys that I started with are both introverts, but for him now he does improv. So like that.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I think for me, like I was definitely a shyer kid. Like I was shy as a kid. But I think for me, going in and getting out there and communicating with different people, and then going to college and things like that definitely helped out too as well. And then doing seminars, not just in the US, but around the world, it really got me comfortable with speaking. And then obviously doing podcasts and interviews definitely got me to a point where like now I'm comfortable saying whatever I need to say and do what I need to do. But same thing with like doing YouTube videos, believe it or not. Like, there was a time in the beginning where we had like 15 different takes. But now it's like one take.
It's also too like you're as you become smarter, as you engulf yourself in the education process, you have this confidence of like what you're talking about too, right? If you don't have the confidence of what you're talking about, you're one of those people within this industry that are just kind of faking it and hoping that, you know, their body or the way they look can get them over. And it's like, well, you sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
You don't have a clue what you're talking. So once you know what you're talking about and you build that confidence there, it's easy to talk about that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, because like I said, like when I talk about the certain things, and I don't talk about the things that I don't know. That's one thing that you cannot do. And a lot of people do that.
A lot of people do, especially now, right? Like how many disease experts are in the fitness industry now? It's like out of this world.
Like they're popping up everywhere now, man.
Everywhere.
Yeah. So it's funny because like you'll get there and you'll know if somebody's faking it. You know what I mean? And not know what they're talking about, because they'll stutter and they'll try to make up things. And if somebody really knows something, maybe an increment of knowledge in that certain field or aspect, you're going to get called out on it, and that's, I mean, I think like with the rise of podcasting and YouTube and social media in general, I think you're getting a lot of those individuals coming out just so that they can get their name out there, but they haven't put in the work, nor have they learned as much to actually have a voice in the industry. Now, I'm not trying to sound like, salty about anything, because I'm not. I really don't care, but it is funny to see that.